Welcome back to Crystal Coaching Connections. Actually, guys, this is the first live one that we are doing for season 3. I'm super happy and stoked. So if you guys don't know me, I am Crystal Baran. I'm a life coach, motivational speaker, author, dancer, skater, everything else in between. And I am the host of Crystal Coaching Connections, a podcast, video podcast that we have the opportunity to chat on a regular basis with entrepreneurs, with people that are going on their life journey and finding out a little bit more about them. Today is my favorite day. I have the opportunity to have my guest today, Steve Furtado, who is a transformational coach. He's a mindset expert, the creator of the Ignite and Rise experience. Steve, after he faced chronic illness and his own personal crisis, he rebuilt his life from the inside out. And now he's helping others to do the same thing. Through his work at Sage Academy, he guides driven souls to break free from patterns, align with truth, rise to the life that they're meant to go for. Get ready, guys, to meet somebody who just doesn't teach transformation. He embodies it. Welcome to the podcast, Steve. Thank you for being my first live guest. But I'm going to do a little thing. I don't know if we checked on Facebook, if we're actually live on Facebook. We are live on Facebook. Perfect. Well, it shows that the live stream ended, but it's not ended 2 minutes ago. Let's see what's going on now.
Challenges with technology. It's all good.
Yeah.
So we're watching season 3, right? This is season 3, episode 1?
Yeah. Season 3, episode 1. You are my first guest, and I'm really happy to have you here. So we have a couple of really fun things to talk about. As most of you know who've watched my podcast before, and we talk about people throughout their journeys, and we talk about who they are, what brought them to where they are, whether they are an entrepreneur in the coaching industry or in the holistic wellness industry, or even somebody that's completely outside of that. And that's what season 3 is actually going to be about. It's going to be about bringing entrepreneurs on the stage to talk about their journey and what brought them to where they are today. So Steve, I want to start by asking you a couple of questions. So I want you to tell us a little bit about who you are and a little bit of your background story. So yeah, I'll leave it in your hands.
Thank you, Crystal. Always a pleasure having these conversations with you. You know, your audience doesn't know me, but again, we're pretty close friends, and you know, we have a similar mission of wanting to support and help other people be the best versions of themselves. You know, and that journey it is what it is for however people see it in their own model of the world. I was talking to one of my clients actually last week, and we were talking about how there's a big difference. There's a huge difference between leading a life of success and leading a life of fulfillment. And I've been an entrepreneur for a little bit over 20 years now. And before my epiphany, catastrophic life event, traumas that I've gone through, before all of that, I recognized those. You know, I was just doing the hustle, creating, getting stuck in cycles and patterns of trying to be successful. Even though some people might have reflected to me and told me that I was successful, I didn't feel it. And life throws us lessons. And a little bit about my story, like it all started for me in 2018. For me, I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, and that was the biggest blessing in disguise, because that made me realize that I needed to change. Not only that, I also admitted that I was lost as a person and I needed help.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to go the traditional route of taking medication and whatnot, but something inside of me was screaming, you got something different with your life. You can't continue like this. And going through, anybody that has any type of chronic illness or autoimmune disease, they know that the pain is there and there's a lot of suffering that goes on. And I feel for the people that are still suffering today. But for me, I heard one story in, let's say, early 2019 that changed the trajectory of my life. And I'll summarize it so we don't waste too much time on it. But I was listening to a chiropractor out of California, where he was talking, and he was more like a internal medicine, holistic style approach as well. And he told a story about a Japanese man during the Second World War. And he was able to heal himself from the nuclear exposure, from the nuclear exposure from the atomic bomb when the Americans bombed Hiroshima back in World War II. So that slapped the victimhood out of me. If somebody could have healed themselves 75, 80 years ago by using 5 daily principles, what am I complaining about with just going through, body inflammation? I was having full body inflammation, even though that was paralyzing on some days when I was going through my worst crises. But the story is simply said that this gentleman would practice 5 daily elements.
So I want you to tell me about the 5 daily elements that he would go through. And we're going to get back to that. But what made you, was there a point before you watched that video that you were slowly but surely starting to realize that there was maybe a place for you? Because I feel like the shift happened watching that video, but I've done a couple of conversations with people and sometimes they don't realize it until they've seen something, or they're slowly but surely starting to feel like they're ready to open their eyes to something new. And that's what was able to trigger the connection process that you had with watching that video and translating it to your story.
Before going through, so going through that amount of pain, it basically, excuse the expression, but it was a mind fuck for me. It was going through that I was 38 years old. I had 2 young kids, but I felt like I was 90 years old, So that transition is what created that trigger, because unfortunately the version of me before, I was definitely more ignorant, more narrow-minded with a specific way of thinking, understanding. I didn't understand that my model of the world wasn't everybody else's model of the world, And for me, honestly, all you need sometimes is a 1-degree shift in the trajectory in your life, right? And that story was that 1-degree shift that took me onto a new path.
That's amazing. Okay, so tell me about those elements.
Yeah, so the 5 daily elements that he would practice every day was health and nutrition, right? We all need to understand that our body needs to be fueled in the physical realm. How he did that was, through nutrition and understanding what what foods needed to get taken to be able to create new cells. There was something at that time that I never took the time to fathom before. Our body generates cells and loses cells every day. So the more cells that our body loses than it generates, well, the body creates sickness. And the more cells that it generates than it loses, well, then the body is at ease, right? It's disease versus at ease. The second practice that you would do is prayer and meditation. So that was the first time I was intrigued about meditation, and the first time that I dealt with a life coach. Celine actually introduced me to meditation. I was skeptical at the beginning, didn't understand the concept, but again, everything is about practice, and the more you do things, the better you get at it. Now, today for me, I say I practice every day. Now, is that a reality? Absolutely not. Life throws us a bunch of elements. We're busy with life, busy being busy with family, kids, careers, errands, a bunch
Life
of
happens.
Life just happens, right? And the thing is though, I notice when I don't meditate, those are not my best days.
So it literally shifts you into this perspective that when you actually take intentional time for yourself through meditation, you have better days. And so the awareness, like you've built an awareness around like, okay, what did my day look like? And what were some of the things that I either did or didn't do that contributed to these factors? And I think that goes to literally everything, right? Like if you were looking at your time when you had rheumatoid arthritis, like what's contributing to the pain that you're having, and then slowly but surely really analyzing your life and your space and making a decision, like you said, that 1% shift. It might have been 1% of something that you decided to change that totally snowballed the effect into place.
Percent. And the misconception of meditation is, you got to quiet the mind. It's not about quieting the mind. It's about lowering the noise and being in a place where you're internalizing with whatever's going on with you from within. We sort of seek a lot of validation through external elements, through, what we understand in our reality with our senses. But the thing is the gift that we all have, but it needs to be practiced, is we need to do self-reflection and take time to really listen from within what's going on.
I think that's something that you told me in a conversation that we had a little while ago about meditation. And it's not about like turning down the noise. It's about turning ourselves up a little bit and like listening more deeply to ourselves. And I think that's a big misconception a lot of people have. And it's funny because meditation comes back on my podcast over and over again. Clearly, it's a message to me. that it's something that I need to maybe start doing that little 1% shift a little bit more, but really connecting with yourself, because the misconception is we're quieting out all, like we're trying to shut down all of the noise of the outside, right? But it's not like you can never stop your thoughts. Thoughts are going to be there. They are part of you. They are actually what propel you. And so that was a big misconception for me. And I think there's a lot of people that think like that. And so I love that we're having this discussion around this because, if there's anything that I want to do with this podcast is really make sure that people have an opportunity to find one little thing that maybe sticks out for them that they can use as their 1% change.
Absolutely. One of those aha moments,
Uh-huh.
those golden nuggets that we could all receive, even though, we might have heard it 50 times. There's also a theory that's called the power of 50, where sometimes we need to hear things 50 times, and hopefully today we could be part of somebody's conversation where we're the 49th that's going to allow them to really accept and move forward by, implementing, one of these daily practices.
And that's interesting that you say that, because I feel like that video that you watched on the guy from the bomb, I really feel like that might have been the 50th time you've probably heard something like that in the past. Like, like suck it up, buttercup. But like, you have to be able to put it into your own perspective, because if you're not ready to hear the information, you're never going to be able to integrate that information. I've read books before that just didn't gel with me. They didn't sit well with me. They were almost triggering and frustrating, which is a sign, guys. Triggers, frustrations. It's typically something that tells us that there's something lacking in balance. So start looking at your triggers. But that for me was that I'm thinking that for you was one of the biggest things. It was probably the 50th time you've heard something like that, and it kicked you up into the next phase of your life. Let's go to number 3, 4, and 5 on those elements, because I think that they're really important. So the number one was, go back. Number one
We talked
was,
about health and vitality. Number two was prayer and meditation. Number three is proper sleep.
yes.
Fortunately, one of the patterns that I had created for many decades in my life was falling asleep in front of the TV. And that blue light is detrimental to us. That TV flickering or just the gray screen that's still on is still detrimental to us. And, more and more research has been done where it has shown where sleep is even more important than what we thought 20, 25 years ago, where, we need that proper sleep to be able to regenerate so we could function as we evolve and grow moving forward, right? We all know once we start getting older, the body doesn't follow like what it did when it was 25 years old. But, once we hit our 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s, maybe, we start realizing that we need to recharge. And when the body, and we have to listen to our body, like, sometimes I've heard stories of people tell me, I'm exhausted, but I slept 10 hours today. I've never slept 10 hours. Well, that's your body telling you needed that rest.
Yeah, absolutely. So step 4 is?
So step 4 is exercise. We got
Yes.
to move our bodies, I saw you on those workouts that you were doing. Impressive stuff. Congratulations.
Thank you. Working really hard.
You're an inspiration.
Thank you. I appreciate hearing that. I'm going through my own process, right? With the
100%.
whole, the mind, the body, the movement and everything. And, overcoming wow, it takes so long to get somewhere, because, I talk about this all the time, small steps, big wins, right? We don't see ourselves in the small steps, but all of a sudden you look back and you're like, holy crap, look where I came from. So yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate that. So movement, what's your favorite kind of movement?
Well, myself, I'm more of a yogi style. I enjoy doing yoga, stretching, and whatnot. I like the practice and what it involves when you're also practicing the movement, how you also in meditation, right? Meditation is not only about sitting down, crossed 4 legs, you're sitting down with your legs crossed and you're just eyes closed, right? You could also be doing moving meditation. So when I
Yes.
practice my meditation, I try to put myself in a bubble where it's just try to put myself in a state of flow, and I'm just creating these sequences, and you see a lot of that in different arts like martial arts, yoga, tai chi, and
Yeah.
other different ancient techniques that allow the body to be able to create movement and let the energy flow within the body.
I love that. And the 5th?
Number 5, it's all about mind-body connection. understand our physiology, how we work. And if you look at it, I'm a little bit of a science geek. How does your nervous system work? What is it there for?
Mhm.
And, using this as a metaphor, I believe there's two systems. You have your nervous system that's wired for comfort. It's there to protect you. The only thing is there's no saber-toothed tigers chasing us anymore. So, the reactions that we have with the emotions and the anxiety and the panic attacks and all that kind of stuff, we have to look at it. And I love using this metaphor, when we're driving on a highway and we're driving a race car and we're going 200 kilometers, 200 miles an hour, whatever speed you're going at.
Mhm.
We're so focused on the road, right? But what do we have? We have the dashboard that's showing us blinking lights. Well, those blinking lights are all signs, our emotions. If you're feeling ailments in your body, those are all triggers and signs telling us there's something going on and it's time for you to pay attention. But unfortunately, in my past life, I was just too busy being busy in my model of the world and what I understood how I needed to operate, because I never took the time to look from within. I was just ignoring them or sugarcoating them with whatever, a quick massage, a quick cream, take an Advil, and
Move
unfortunately,
on.
that's just sugarcoating the issues, right?
So I want to go back to something that you said. You also said something to me in a conversation like, we're ignoring the dashboard, right? But sometimes it goes to empty. And it doesn't matter if we're doing 200 miles an hour. If you've got no gas tank, you ain't going any farther.
No, 100%. Yeah.
You had said that to me in a call that we had, and I was like, oh, I'm so glad that he's bringing this up because I get to like reiterate that one, because we do that, right? Like I talk a lot with my community and with my clients about the nervous system, right? And the difference between the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system. And we're not often enough in our sympathetic nervous system. People think that sleep is enough rest, and it's not. There are other ways to get rest, like you said, by active meditation, by moving our bodies, having intentional time with ourselves. And it's really important that we start to pay attention to that, to be able to help us get out of that freeze system that, like your body and mine, because I've had health issues too, our bodies are in freeze. Their bodies start to tell us that there's a freaking problem. And, somebody might be joining this and saying, oh, well, it's just arthritis. Well, it could be cancer.
Absolutely.
It could be any kind of illness from one end of the spectrum to the other. Something like fibromyalgia, right? That doctors are coming back and they're telling us now that it is 100% psychosomatic. It manifests itself in your physical body. But the work that needs to get done is not a medical work. It's a mind work. It's the work that we have to do on our internal systems. And so going back to what you said earlier, you said you got a coach through your practice. So you have this enlightening moment and then you go and get coaching yourself. And how did that feel for you? Was that something that you had ever tried before? Had you done therapy?
No, I was always, my mom also suffered from rheumatoid arthritis. So I sort of had a 20-year vision experience of what she went through.
Mm.
But by the time it came up to me that I was paying more attention, I had realized and looked back and connected the dots of what she was doing. And unfortunately, my perspective, she was missing a couple of the elements. Maybe she had 25, 50% of the elements. But what I was able to heal myself was practicing those 5 elements. And, we have to look at things in a spectrum, right? There's the power of accepting things and the force of resisting things. And through the midbrain, through our amygdala, our nervous system taps in to protect us and we resist things. So at the beginning, the first times I was getting coached, I was definitely resistant, skeptical of, what the outcome could be and whatnot. But again, like the more you have those conversations, you have to be in tune and, go with your judgment and sometimes with your intuition and try to see, how can I say, like try to see the value of what my coach was trying to teach me at that point. But the thing is too, is at that point, I had already decided that I needed the help, right?
Yes.
And I
So
wanted
you're
that help.
willing to try anything. And
Yes. But at the beginning, there was definitely resistance. But as time progressed, I started adapting. But the thing is too, is, we have to realize that everything is a pattern.
Mhm.
And, to create change, you have to take things out of your patterns, things out of your daily, weekly, monthly patterns out, and start replacing them with new patterns that are going to help you and support you in a way that we were never taught. But again, everything works with frequency. we are conditioned as soon as we wake up in the morning, most of us, that we're already in a high state of beta. We're already in a state of stress.
Yeah.
But we think this is normal, and it's not. This is not the way we were constructed and where we're supposed to be. You know,
No.
Nikola Tesla said that the universe works in 3 elements, and it's all in the non-physical. Everything works under energy, vibration, and frequency. You know, and that's the same thing with meditation. It's all non-physical. It's everything that's going in the metaphysical from within that we need to start, paying attention to, of what needs to get done.
Absolutely. That's very powerful. Thank you so much for that incredible insight, Steve. Now let's go a little bit farther. Let's fast forward a little bit. So you went through your process. You started to heal yourself of your rheumatoid arthritis.
Absolutely.
You started seeing a coach. Again, I love the resistance part of it, because I think everybody that goes into this, sometimes even into therapy, any type of alternate therapy is obviously not alternative, but like any type of thing that's maybe outside the norm of what the people are doing around you becomes like, you're like, oh, I don't know if this is going to work. And I mean, I have a client recently that was like, I don't know if this is a quick fix. So I don't know if I want to do all of this time. And the transformations are incredible. So if you were to tell me now, like, was there a point when you decided, because now, I introduced you, you yourself are a coach, you
Right.
are a mindset mentor, and that was a transformation that changed, because you said this started in 2018, your journey.
Correct.
And then it brought you to the last few years where you're actually in the coaching space. And so what triggered you to realize that you had a bigger purpose than what you were doing before? Because you said you were in the entrepreneurship world, you were in construction, I guess doing the things that you thought you had to do without any purpose behind them. So I'll let you tell me a little bit about that story. We'll take a few minutes on that. And then, I'd love to know more.
Absolutely. Again, I'm sharing my story here. It's not because my story is any more special than anybody else's story. It's just, we all go through traumas. We all go through catastrophic life events. And, by sharing my story is just hopefully going to reflect with somebody that's going to hear this today to, maybe stand up or raise their hand and say, you know what, it's time for me to create a new 1-degree shift in my life, or I want to create a new transformation of where I want to go, So, after healing myself from rheumatoid arthritis about 9 months, you start getting comfortable again and going back into your comfort zones, into your old patterns.
Back to past patterns, rewind.
But unfortunately, at the same time, a year down the road in 2018, I created a 1-degree shift. But, 9 months, a year down the road, I was on a completely different path. And unfortunately, that path with my spouse, we drifted apart. And, pandemic, everybody has their stories of what happened during, early 2020 and all those shenanigans that happened. For me, I realized that I wasn't with the right person. My intuition had been screaming at me, telling me it's time to get out. So in early 2020, I decided to go to my wife and say, you know what, I can't do this anymore. Even though my mind was telling me, what are you doing? Is it right? I had 2 young boys. You have a business, you have a house, mortgage, all those responsibilities. But again, my soul inside of me was telling me, you got to create something different.
Because you started to listen to yourself when you started to do the work, and you probably hadn't been listening to yourself for many years.
Absolutely.
And not following your gut, not following your intuition, and just saying like everything's going to be okay. It is what it is.
Yeah, and I believe that these incidences, life throws them at us to teach us something. You have to say that whatever event has gone through your life, whether it was in childhood or it happened in your teenage years or in your adulthood, that this is a sign. And, the universe is going to teach you the lesson. And unfortunately, when you don't,
whether you like it or not,
when you don't listen, it's going to amplify. And I didn't listen for 30, for let's say 15 years of my adulthood. And, unfortunately, I told my wife I wanted a separation, and she didn't take it too well. Long story short, relationship had broken down, and it was time for me to separate. But, my ex-wife, unfortunately, decided to set me up, and she ended up calling the police on me to, say that I beat her and I beat the kids, to take control of the situation, right?
That must have been so difficult.
Listen, again, today I look at it and I'm grateful for that, because it showed me things that I needed to do, and I needed to do the work. But, long story short, unfortunately, the circumstances didn't help. There was, my mom that was involved as well, and she didn't accept the way my ex was handling the situation. And, again, it's not about understanding why people do what they do. It's sometimes there's just different people. And, unfortunately, my mom, she was set in her ways, and the things that my ex was doing, she wouldn't accept. And it turned her down to a downward spiral. Unfortunately, by December of 2020, a few weeks before the Christmas holidays, we found out that my mom had stage 4 cancer. And, that led to me losing my mom in July of 2021. It's going to be 4 years now in a couple of
So
weeks.
sorry for your loss.
Thank you. But again, part of the process and part of me connecting the dots and understanding that, this was her movie. I use an analogy that we're all the star of the movies of our own life, and that was the end of her movie. No matter what circumstances or events came along, I had to accept. Again, at the beginning, I was resisting
it was her movie.
Yeah. But, with time, I had to accept that was what happened to her. But again, by me accepting, it also alleviates that suffering that I was creating for myself.
Yeah.
We hold on to so many things that do not serve us. And, at the same time as I'm talking, the words are coming out of my mouth, but they're already part of the past.
Yeah, it's true.
But we hold on to so many things that we cannot change. But again, that's just the way that we're wired. And why, in my belief, is you got to look at two ways, And my philosophy is always trying to look at an empowering outlook in life. Unfortunately, we're wired always to look at a disempowering outlook in life. But also, that's the journey of what we're here to do. As we experiences, we need to take the time to learn from them. That's going to help us to evolve, to help us to grow. We all grow up biologically, but unfortunately, we have to realize that we all need to sometimes grow up emotionally.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's something that's almost like it's one of those myths that we have that automatically as we age, we grow up and we grow the emotional intelligence that goes with it. And that's actually not true, because if we're not taking from the examples of our lives and learning to integrate them, to overcome, to have them propel us, to really learn the lesson that we've been taught, we're not actually growing. We're just growing old.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So now you're a coach, and that's amazing. And that took you a couple of years. I think that you went through that process after the divorce, right? It's like it was during the divorce, after the divorce.
What fascinated me was, what opened my eyes was I wanted to understand why my ex-wife was doing what she was doing, because, it didn't make sense to why she was acting the way she was.
Okay.
And, understanding, and that's how I got into, interested in psychology and human behavior. And, basically, I came upon, I don't know if you ever heard of David Hawkins. I'm sure I've mentioned it to you in the past, right?
Yes.
So, and understanding the map of consciousness, there are 4 stages. And in the bottom stage, we all lived and experienced, we all live and visit in different levels. But again, in this level of understanding, in this empowering outlook, is realizing that we have a journey to ascend step by step by step, stage by stage by stage, But in the lower levels of consciousness, we call that the to me stage. Everything happens to me.
Yes, the to me.
We've all been victimized to a certain degree. But again, like I mentioned before, I got the victim slapped out of me when I heard that story about the Japanese man, because again, I was playing the victim within myself too, because I was going through these ailments, going through this inflammation I was going through.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that was the trigger that made me realize, okay, time to change, time to upgrade, it's time to learn more, it's time to do more, And once you ascend to the next stage, everything, the second level of consciousness is everything happens by me. And we all know this, the high achievers, everything gets done by me. And we keep pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing, creating those cycles, wanting more. And again, tying into what I said at the beginning of the conversation, chasing success. But at the end, we're not getting fulfillment. Why? Because we're always looking for external validation when fulfillment is fulfilled when you do internal things that support you and create happiness. And by all means, it's not because money is not important and whatnot. I'm a big believer that you need to create that balance and that understanding on both senses, whether it's physical or metaphysical at that stage. And, the third stage is this, the stuff that I love to teach a little bit more is how do we live in flow state? How do we live in through me? Being able to understand that as human beings, we are creators. The stories in my life, I had to take responsibility for those stories.
Yeah.
We were all born attached to an umbilical cord to our moms. You and I were both
come from the same place.
Humans were all made of the same stuff, right? But we also have to realize that sometimes we create that umbilical cord attachment to other situations, circumstances, or events that happen to us, and we continuously point the finger away from us. Well, the next stage is, we have to accept and take responsibility from within, because I believe that everything I've created in my life, I've created it. So for me to reach those stages of catastrophic life events of, having the arthritis, going through a tough divorce, unfortunately losing my mother at a very young age. After that, I was in battle for shared custody with my kids. That's me not listening to the signs that were given to me before. The universe just told me, you know what, Steve, it's time to chop you at the knees, and now we're gonna give you the opportunity to listen. And I took that opportunity. Now, again, just because you had that opportunity doesn't mean that you're gonna create that change. You have to actually do the work and take the time and do the work to be able to create that transformation, like, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it just came into my head but I feel like rock bottom is our Noah's Ark.
Absolutely.
And it's like, it gives you the opportunity to okay, you're on this boat now. You have a full opportunity to start over fresh again. And I think a lot of people don't realize when they're hitting rock bottom because they're stuck in that first stage. To me, why is this happening to me? Why is this happening to me? And my goal, I know in my practice, and I'm sure in yours as well, is to get people from the to me to for me, and then to the awareness, then to the reflection and the change. Right. So it's just, sorry, it just it popped up in my head. I was like, totally Noah's Ark. It's like, let's just strip this down to nothing again. We're bringing the earth back to zero and we're starting over again. And I think as humans, if we haven't been conscious of ourselves, we are all going to be faced with those rock bottom moments.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So tell me a little bit about what you've got going on in your world right now. As a coach, you see clients one-on-one, or you do group programs. How do you work with your client?
So again, I was, during my journey coming out of 2021, I was physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually drained, but I was always a big enthusiast about personal growth. So, I was always looking for the next program and whatnot. But the thing is again, in my perspective, now in my understanding of what I've studied is, the personal development industry supports a lot of people going from to me to buy me, from to me to buy me, or from buy me to high buy me, And the thing is, I was doing a lot of work, a lot of studying, a lot of programs with different types of mentors and online programs that were also available, but it was never creating results.
Got it.
And then, I ended up following on my mentor's work. His name is Peter Sage. He's out from out from the UK, and he created this program called the Elite Mentorship Forum, and it's a 6-month program where we went through a transformation in a group, in a cohort, and that was my calling. He had started a trainer program where he wanted people to spread the word even more. And again, my mission is to raise global consciousness. But what does that mean? It just means that, we need to talk to as many people that are ready to listen, to adapt what they are doing, understand what they are doing, and raise their awareness on what's going on in their life. Just like I was talking about the blinking lights on the dashboard. That's the awareness that you need to pay attention to when you're mentored or coached by me or by yourself. And what do? We show people's blind spots because again, we're going 200 miles an hour. we're always in achiever mode. We're in a high state of beta, and we're always rolling at a pace that we're not taking the time that we need to take the time to do what we need to do. And that's what the Elite Mentorship Forum offers, and that's something that I lead through my own personal cohorts now, to teach people to take more time for themselves, accept that it is a process and it is a journey, and also like, I believe that learning is everlasting, so if you ever stop learning, well, you're also stunting your own personal growth.
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. I love this. So you take people through a 6-month cohort, I guess.
Correct.
That's what I'm understanding, which is
Yeah.
incredible. And it's a group program. I love the idea of a group program because I think, again, another one of the things that humankind has this penchant for doing things alone. When it takes a village to raise a child, it takes a village to raise an adult. And so having other people around you that are supporting the same mission as you, it's super powerful. You actually have something coming up in Montreal, the weekend of August 23rd, if I'm not mistaken.
Absolutely.
So tell me a little bit about that. I'm excited to hear about your launch. Sorry to my guests, I already knew about the launch, but I want Steve to take an opportunity to tell us a little bit more about it. Where is it going to be? What's it going to be about? It's 2 days. Am I right?
Absolutely.
right.
Within my passion of wanting to help people, there's something that happens. There's a magic that happens that when you get people in a room together, and that social dynamics that happens. We could do it online. You know what I mean? Like, we hold our cohorts online, and the magic still happens there. But we are all tribal, right? And a passion of mine and a passion of yours is building communities of like-minded individuals that want to go through a shift, a transformation, trying to create something more for their life in whatever aspect they believe that's in. Like, I believe there's 3 games to life, and that we all need to master to a certain capacity: health and nutrition and vitality, the game of wealth and abundance. What is that understanding, and how deep are we truly understanding how to attract abundance in our life? Mastering relationships.
Yeah.
But again, the most important relationship is the relationship with
Yourself.
Crystal.
No, with yourself.
With yourself.
With Crystal. We're having this much fun on the podcast.
We're not supposed to be, no?
No, I'm joking. Of course we are.
These are our conversations. People have to...
For any of you that know us, like, this is the way Steve and Crystal interact all the time. This is what our Zoom conversations look like. And it's fun to have people like that in your life where you can actually have these conversations with, and they don't think you're nuts. Because for many years, when I was doing this on my own, I mean, it's true. When you start this, sometimes you're so alone. You're the only person doing this. And I have a lot of my clients that their friends, their family, they have no idea what they're doing. They, they're focused on this, like, oh, well, you've changed so much. Yeah, I've changed. I'm evolving. I'm learning about myself. Like, the most important person to get to know is right over here inside of you. So yeah, like the creating the tribe and being in person. I mean, I love my retreats. I love my workshops. I love the physical thing. I do love my Zoom stuff as well and my one-on-one coaching. But so this weekend, tell me about the weekend. Is it both days? Is it like 1 day, 2 days? Like, tell me a little bit about how you have this mapped out, and tell the audience a little bit more about it.
Yeah, so Ignite and Rise, I wanted to create a 2-day event. Obviously, 2 days, sometimes people might resist to attend for 2 days. So, the whole purpose of creating Ignite and Rise, and, I'm officially announcing that, Crystal is going to be my co-host, supporting me on that event. And I'm so grateful that you're going to be there with me. But again, the whole purpose is, again, the first thing is, I love teaching in metaphors, and I believe that we all have an internal furnace, and that furnace can either burn you or ignite you, right? And that internal flame that ignites us is what projects us to the next stage, to the next level of where we want to go through our own personal truth. I'm coming from a place that it's not for me to judge anybody on what is your journey, on what is the journey you want to go. Because firstly, I believe that, and I think there's a quote from Mother Teresa that if you judge somebody, you lose the ability to be able to support them, and to be able to encourage them, and be able to be able to take them on that journey as well. So Ignite Day 1 is all about that. reigniting that inner flame within, getting in touch with ourselves. Unfortunately, we all hold traumas from our childhood. There's going to be 2 workshops that I'm definitely going to be doing that day that's going to look at the inner child within us, because we're all 8-year-olds walking around in adult bodies, right?
So true.
And connecting and understanding that there's always a spectrum, and I'm always going to look at those extremes. There's a huge difference between living a life in fear and living a life in faith and love.
Mm.
And I believe that that's the bridge that I love taking people on towards. Looking at the fears that we all have. We're all made of the same stuff. We all have the fear of failure. We all have the fear that we're not enough. But again, we don't vocalize it because a lot of us never really took the time to show that to anybody else. But we
It's
all
true.
think the same thing.
Yeah, we haven't integrated it. We haven't integrated that emotion inside of us.
So day 2 is going to be all about raising our awareness, raising our consciousness. And there's a method to my madness. You know what I mean? I'm the type that loves the spiritual side and loves connecting and doing self-reflection. But at the same time, I like the scientific data.
Yeah.
I'm going to teach you a couple of elements on quantum physics and quantum alignment, and, understand a little bit about chaos theory and different theories like the Gestalt theory and whatnot, where we're going to go deeper also into the 4 stages of consciousness, because within those 4 stages, there's 17 levels. And in those 17 levels, it's a process.
Yeah.
And the higher states of consciousness, the reality is that most of us are never going to attain the higher stages of enlightenment. But if there's been studies done that 80% of the population is in victim mode, is in to-me mode.
Yeah, I believe that.
But again, it's our responsibility to detach ourselves from our whatever umbilical cord that we hold on to, and take action to be able to want to learn more, and then take those forward steps to create that forward momentum to create whatever we desire in our lives.
I think it's fun that you're doing the 2 days. I love that they have 2 very separate models. I also love that you're taking them through a journey. And, that's the other thing too, is like being in a physical location together, the energy, there's something that happens in these things, like literally the transformation is in the location sometimes. And I totally believe that we can do what we do here, passing through messages through the computer. I truly believe in that because I've seen transformations myself. But having an event like this here in Montreal, it's actually something that's needed. It's way more important than I think Steve or I could actually put an impact on. It's absolutely necessary. Montreal is a beautiful place, and there's a lot of people that are searching for transformation. And I think that this weekend is going to be a good weekend for it. So tell me the dates.
August 23rd and 24th, Saturday and Sunday, full day events. Again, tickets are going to be offered through my website, and we're gonna post all the links for everybody to take a look at. And if you have any questions, please don't be shy to ever reach out to myself or Crystal. But
Perfect.
it's gonna be held at the Sheraton Convention Center in Laval. Pretty accessible, easy parking, beautiful event of where I'm looking to again bring people, because it's not about you and I, Crystal, right? The mission, what we're trying to create, is bigger than us.
Yeah.
And being able to share this information and being able to draw the people that are interested in this is, my greatest dream and desire that I want to create for other people. The gifts that I've been given, I believe this is what I am here for, to offer to everybody else. But again, it's a process as well for us to do and build and whatnot. But me creating the event has been one of my most passionate experiences that I've done. And again, we're on a stage that we're ramping up. The event is in 46 days. Anybody who's interested, you know what I mean, please come.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't even know if we're live right now because the system messed up. So we might not even be live. If you're live, obviously, you know where to find us. You can click on both of our names. Steve's got his stuff that's ready to be launched. If we're not live, I'm going to be making sure to post this everywhere, and Steve is going to do the same thing. We're going to make sure that those links to find out more about the actual Rise and Ignite event. I'm excited to be part of it. I'm excited to be, on the back end helping you out, and possibly adding some of my feminine touch to the project.
Absolutely.
Steve, this was absolutely incredible. If we are not live, where can people find you?
If we're not live, you could find me on social media and in most of the big platforms, whether it's Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. We're trying to
All of them.
spread the word as many places as we can. My handle is at @LifeShift_ with SF. That's at LifeShift with _SF. Everything about the event is posted on my website. You can go to stevefurtado.com/ignite if you want to look at specifically what's going on with the event or any other masterclasses that myself or even Crystal will be offering in the near future.
That's amazing, Steve. Thank you so much for this. I'm so glad that I got my first episode of season 3 in.
Season 3 is in.
I'm very excited for your story to be shared because I think it's very important. It's very relatable to some people, actually to a lot of people. I think we've all gone through moments like that, of like the moments of crisis in our lives. And the feeling of being alone is probably one of the biggest ailments that I think that humans are currently facing. And so your story, if it can shift somebody else's life to realizing that they're not alone and that they have a space in the world, that somebody has gone through something similar to what they've gone through, for me, that's the most important thing. And if I've managed to do that with this podcast, super happy.
Mission accomplished.
Yeah, exactly. So whether we're live or we're not live, thank you so much, Steve, for coming on the show. Thank you to my listeners. Thank you to Steve's listeners for joining in on this podcast today. I truly appreciate you. Stay tuned for more episodes coming up. Thank you and have an awesome day.
I'm in absolute appreciation. Thank you so much, Crystal.
Thank you, Steve.